Hey everybody, Pastor Zach here. Thanks so much for spending some time with me this morning as we gather together for this time of building community, of growing, of learning together, of having some fun, and of being engaged in life together. Um, so I wrote, two things this morning: Goldfish and Grace, and one of them is a reference to a show I've talked about before. A really powerful show. If you haven't watched it yet, I encourage. It's not for kids, but the show Ted Lasso is by far, hands down, one of the best shows out there that engages community life. I would love to do a men's study on it. I would love to see people engaged in it more fully and to have broader conversations about it, because I think on many levels it shows the best of us, but it also shows the worst of humanity. But in the mix of it all, we have this understanding, this hope, this promise that sort of leads through all of it. This openness to learning and growth and understanding, these guardrails, the support of one another. I could go on and on for an hour, but I won't. But one of the lines in it, the head coach is talking to one of the players who's getting down, and he pulls him aside and he says, "Do you know what the happiest animal in the world is?" And he says, "No." He says it's a goldfish, because they have a 10-second attention span. They have 10-second memory. So he says, "Be a goldfish," which on the one hand I think is awesome. And part of that is, what can we let go of? What is something that is not serving us right now? Whatever is going on in your mind, wherever you are, whatever you're struggling with, is it something you really need to hold on to? And if it isn't, how do you let it go? How do you release it? How do you say, this is not worth, not my time, my emotional security, the effort that I'm putting in, the anxiety that it is causing me. So how do we be goldfish in some of that? And the reality is, we can't do it for everything. We can't. There are some things that we have to face. There's a lot of things we have to face. And so that's the other part of it, I think, is in those moments, in those opportunities, in that way, how do we show grace? How do we allow things that are happening to us and around us to not affect us as deeply, as profoundly? How can we show grace when someone injures us? How can we show grace with how we treat someone else? Our nation, our world is very divisive right now, and there's this constant barrage, I believe, of this: you have to believe my way or else. But do I? And why? And just because we don't agree, I mean, the whole joy of a system of government is to have different ideas and different understandings, and yet to talk with one another, to have that. And so how do we as the church have those opportunities to offer grace? How do we as the church be in those moments to say, let's have this conversation? And I truly believe that most of us have people's best interests at heart, that we truly care for other people in various ways. And if we could sit down at a table and have a conversation and see one another, that I think we could maybe not completely agree, but go away from that encounter with a different level of understanding and respect for each other, and care for one another, and hope for the world around us. And that grace that we can offer that person in that time can strengthen us and strengthen them and strengthen our community and strengthen the world. It's so profound, and I think it's really interesting that I was watching this podcast the other day, and they were talking about Jesus, and Jesus' reminder that, hey, I've come to fulfill the law. Now think about this for a minute. what law is he talking about? Well, the law of Moses. Law of Moses, 10 Commandments, pretty simple. There's a big fight now about, whether or not they should be in the schools. I have my own feelings on that. You know, but what Jesus says is, I've come to fulfill the law. And all of that boils down, all of the Old Testament boils down to two laws: love God and love your neighbor. And what we then try to do is we try to box in God, going, well, this is what God accepts. And then we try to box in, well, who is my neighbor? And if you read the Bible, how I see it is that we are called to love our neighbor, to love our enemy. And what does that look like? What does that mean? Who is it? Who are they? Who is our neighbor? Is it the person across the street? Is it the person down the street? Where do we draw that line? And Jesus talks about this in the parable of the Good Samaritan. He talks about it in various other places where, it's the most unexpected is the one who is called to serve and to show mercy and to have grace. And I wonder, what does that mean for the world today? We talk about this, and often, well, it's survival of the fittest, or the strongest ones, make the rules. And the reality is, it takes more strength to be a goldfish, to offer grace, to serve someone who owes you or can give you nothing in return, than it can for anything else. And we are invited to do just that. Each and every time, each and every occurrence that we have an opportunity to do this, to connect, to find new ways, to when we have those negative experiences, to be a goldfish, to let it go. And sometimes it is hard, but it can be done. And to offer grace, to give. We just finished up here, and I don't know the total numbers yet, but our Super Bowl of Caring, where we raise money and collect non-perishable food items for local and national and global hunger, people who are hungry in the communities. And that goes far and wide, because people are hungry. And some of it is for food, some of it is for sustenance, and other times it is for connection and understanding and grace, because we all need it. And how then can we live differently? How can you live differently this week? How can I live differently this week? Being a goldfish, offering grace, and receiving that grace. So I'd be curious, your thoughts, your comments, your smart remarks, positive, negative, we'll take them. I invite you and I encourage you to share this with someone else. Join in the conversation. Let's see this as a conversation. If anybody wants, come on. We'll have a conversation here. We'll have it. I can invite you on. We'll have a video discussion. I saw this kind of really neat thing that I was intrigued by, where it was a candidate for something who sat down with like 30 or some undecided voters, and they sat in the middle, and the people sat around them, and they had a conversation. And I don't know, the concept was really cool. So what would that look like? How can we be engaged in community and conversation as we live into what God has in store for us? So I invite you, as always, let's be in conversation. I invite you to join us tomorrow night, Wednesday. We have our midweek service. We have a soup and bread meal starting at 6 o'clock here, and then we'll go into a short service and discussion. So all are welcome for that. Our online and on-site service at 8:30 and 10:30 this Sunday. We have our local chief of police who's coming in to talk with us in between for our adult faith formation. So come on in, hang out with us, experience some time, be a goldfish this week. But more importantly, maybe not more importantly, I encourage you, offer some grace this week. Thank you guys so much for spending some time with me. I enjoy it as always. I look forward to hearing your comments and your questions as we move forward. Take care, everybody. God bless. Have a great week. Be safe out there.